Welcome to the kingdom. I'm Chris, and this is Good Enough Gaming. Howdy folks, and welcome to this video about a potential hazard or roadblock to getting people into tabletop wargaming as a hobby. Now, I imagine many of you already know what the Matt Mercer effect is, but in case you're not familiar, Matt Mercer is a voice actor who started streaming games of Dungeons & Dragons with a group of other voice actors. Their show, called Critical Role, became incredibly popular, and eventually it was even picked up by Amazon to create their animated series Vox Machina. And I gotta tell you, that show is fantastic, but it's definitely not for children. Anyways, part of the reason Mercer and his crew took off was because back in 2020, the lockdowns gave everybody a reason to start exploring new games and hobbies that were perfect for being trapped in your apartment all day. Model companies like Games Workshop recorded some of their biggest profits ever as people were stuck at home and needed something to do. And with websites like Roll20, Dungeons & Dragons became a way that people could still have some fun and social interaction while the entire world was shut down. YouTube allowed people to explore games, watch tutorials, watch battle reports, and it became a little bit of a replacement for being able to go to the local gaming store. Popular gaming channels absolutely exploded, and Critical Role introduced thousands of new players into tabletop role-playing games. And I mean, who could blame them? Mercer is about as top-notch a dungeon master as you could hope for, and with all of the other players being experts at character creation, immersion, role-playing, watching Critical Role play an adventure was almost as good as watching a movie. And therein lies the rub. When your first exposure to Dungeons & Dragons is watching Critical Role, of course that will get you excited to play the game. The problem is, not every dungeon master is going to be as good as Matt Mercer, and many of the players, super excited to join their first game, were expecting Critical Role quality, but instead got the average experience of players and dungeon masters doing their best, but without the resources and talents of the professionals. So simply put, the Matt Mercer effect gave new players, and maybe even some more seasoned players, an unrealistic expectation for the game. It set the standards at the very top of the ladder. Players were expecting a steakhouse, but got McDonald's. Were wanting Lord of the Rings, but got Rings of Power. So what does that mean for tabletop wargaming? Social media like YouTube has become one of the most effective ways that people interested in tabletop gaming can learn about new games, can watch game demos and how to play videos, as well as get tips on painting, kit bashing, making terrain, all kinds of stuff. It's an amazing resource. But there's a catch. The higher quality channels and videos are typically those with professionally painted models, tabletops that could easily be museum displays, and budgets for high-quality production, multi-camera filming, and professional editing. Top-tier channels like Play on Tabletop, Tabletop Tactics, and Mini Wargaming are good examples of this. Now there are exceptions. Winter's SEO and Striking Scorpion 82 were two of my favorite channels back when I was heavy into 40K, and both of them use a single camera held by the show host. And in the case of Winters, it's his phone. They're actually the inspiration for how I do my own battle reports, because it was simple, but it was still good. Now, both of them, even though they might not have multiple cameras, they still have gorgeously painted models and really nice gaming table setups. Plus, especially in the case of Winters, they're characters. They're fun to watch and listen to, which is why their channels have done so well over time. But here is where those top-tier channels are both a blessing and a curse. Someone interested in tabletop gaming will look for it on YouTube. They'll see amazing painted armies on fantastic-looking tables with high-quality production and editing. I mean, honestly, how could you not want to get into wargaming after seeing a couple videos like that? But when the individual in question buys their first batch of models to paint, or heads to the local gaming store for their first game, they quickly find out there is a steep curve between painting your first model and winning the crystal brush. Or tabletops with beautiful gaming mats and lots of detailed, well-painted terrain versus using old boxes and cans and whatever you can find around the house. They also discover that while a battle report video is only an hour or so long and everything runs smoothly, the action never stops, a true game can take 2 to 3 hours and has lots of pausing, measuring, deliberating, and double-checking rulebooks. Lastly, if you're playing with strangers at a local gaming store, there's always the possibility that your opponent is that guy, instead of the close-knit group of friends and colleagues portrayed on the YouTube channels who have known each other for decades and have a great rapport. So I would say yes, there is definitely a Matt Mercer effect in wargaming. So what do we do about it? Well, first, remember that cream rises to the top. There's a reason some YouTube battle reports have over 100,000 views. It's because they're top-notch, and there's a lot of time, money, and effort put into making them top-notch. Watch some bat reps that don't have such massive exposure, and you'll probably be getting a closer idea of what it's like in your typical casual gaming community. To do otherwise is kind of like going to a Little League game, but expecting Major League talent. That's one of the reasons I named my channel what I did. Good enough was both a reminder to myself that this is a hobby, not a career, and a reminder to viewers to go easy on themselves and on others. And that's partly what I mean in each video when I say, keep your dice on the table. One thing individual gamers and hobbyists can do is to be patient with themselves and only compare themselves with themselves. There will always be someone who is better at painting or kit bashing than you. But you should only be trying to make your painting tomorrow better than it was today. Now, of course, you can use the experts as inspiration, but never set the top dogs as your standard. Otherwise, anything less is failure. A local gaming store near me has a shelf in one of their display cases where people put their first model that they ever painted. And wow, some of them are pretty rough. One is only primed and never went any further. Others have the paint applied so thick you'd think they were using a paint roller instead of a paintbrush. Some have absolutely dreadful color schemes. Others were so badly assembled that there are huge gaps and dried puddles of plastic glue clearly visible on the model. We're talking some serious nightmares here. But when a new player sees those models, they realize most folks start out that way. And even if they start as an adult, they shouldn't expect perfection after their first or second model. But then, on that same shelf, are some models by those same people after years of practice. And the new players can see that everyone might start at the bottom, but with work, time, and effort, they can work their way up quite a bit. The same thing holds true for gaming tables. If you're playing for free at a local gaming store, you're not really in a position to complain if the terrain provided isn't stellar. It's free. Someone else paid for it, someone else painted it, and someone donated it to the store. If nice-looking tables are that important to you, then why not start building and collecting your own set of terrain that you bring down with you when you play? Or if you really want to go the extra mile, paint it up and donate it to the store for as long as you live in town. So in the end, I think top-tier content is great because it shows the possibilities, but top-tier content should never be the standard. For you new hobbyists, be patient. Learn from those who have more experience, but don't compare yourselves to them. And for all of us, a little bit of the golden rule can go a long way. Don't demand from others what you can't provide yourself. So until next time, keep your dice on the table. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be good enough.